The first thing Eli Mercer saw was a young woman on the ground, her dress torn open at the chest, her body twisted like something had been thrown away. For a split second, from where he stood, it looked like he was about to do something no decent man should ever do. His boots stopped near her shoulder, and she didn't move until her fingers twitched, clutching the fabric at her ribs like it was the last thing she owned in this world. Her voice came out broken, barely holding together. "Don't! That's off limits!" Eli froze. His hand stopped in the air, then slowly pulled back. He didn't touch her. He hadn't laid a careless hand on a frightened woman in a long time. He'd buried his own wife in the fever year of 1878, and ever since then, he'd sworn he wouldn't stand by and watch suffering when he could still do something about it. Instead, he took off the worn blanket tied behind his saddle, shook the dust off it, and laid it gently over her without letting his fingers brush her skin. Eli glanced up toward the back door. It was wide open. He had come here to speak with Pima County Sheriff Asa Whitmore about missing cattle, tracks that didn't belong, and wagons that rode too heavy for honest work. But now there was a girl lying at his feet, beaten, shaken, and hiding something under her own clothes like it mattered more than her pain. "You fit to talk?" he asked, voice low and steady. She shook her head first, then stopped, then nodded, like even she didn't know which answer was true anymore. "My father," she whispered. "He can't know I got out here." So he looked at the house again, then back at her, then at the river. He was standing at the edge of something rotten. And if he stepped in, there was no stepping back out. So the question was simple, and it wasn't about courage, it was about cost. Was he about to save a girl from her father, or walk straight into a fight against the law itself? He helped Clara sit up, slow and careful, making sure the blanket stayed between his hands and her skin. She kept one arm tight across her ribs, like whatever she was hiding mattered more than the bruises forming underneath. They moved away from the house, down toward the edge of the Santa Cruz River. Not far, just enough so no one could hear them if a horse came back too soon. Eli crouched by the water, scooped some in his hand, and passed it to her without getting close. She drank like she hadn't had a quiet moment in days. Then she said it, not fast, not dramatic, just tired. "He's selling them." Eli looked at her, waiting. "Chinese girls," she said, voice low and tired. "Through Benson, then down to Tombstone. They don't come back." "That's a big thing to say about a sheriff," he said. She nodded once. "I know." "That paper you're holding," he said. "That's not just word." She hesitated. Then slowly, carefully, she reached inside the lining of her dress. Not all the way out, just enough for him to see the edge of folded paper stitched into place. Names, dates, train times, payments. "Why didn't he take it from you?" "He tried," she said. Her eyes drifted back toward the house. "He tore my dress looking for it, but I'd stitched it into the hem the night before. I told him I'd burned it, and he believed me for a minute. That meant he'd be back. And when Asa Whitmore came back and realized what was missing, he wouldn't be calm about it." Eli stood up, brushing dust off his hands. This wasn't just about helping a girl anymore. This was bigger than one frightened girl and one bad beating. This had money under it, men behind it, and enough rot to poison half the territory. "I was heading home," Eli said quietly. "That was the plan." Clara gave a weak smile. "That still sounds like a good plan." Eli let out a short breath, almost a laugh, but not quite. "Yeah," he said. "It does." He looked back at her again. Really looked this time. Not just the fear, not just the bruises, but the way she held on, like she'd already decided she wasn't going to break. No matter what came next, that made the choice for him. "Can you ride?" he asked. She nodded. "I can try." "That'll have to do. Because if they stayed, Asa would return, and if they ran, he would follow. Either way, this wasn't ending quiet, and Eli Mercer knew one thing for certain now. Whatever Clara Whitmore had stitched into that dress, men were already willing to hurt her for it. So the real question was, how many would be willing to kill to get it back? Eli didn't waste time. He helped Clara onto the saddle, steady but careful, making sure she climbed up on her own as much as she could. She winced once, then settled in, holding tight to the front of the saddle instead of him. They rode out along the dry edge of the Santa Cruz River, keeping low, avoiding the main road. About a mile out, he saw it. Fresh prints cutting across the trail behind them. 2 riders, maybe 3. "They're already looking," he said. Clara didn't turn around. "I told you he would." They pushed the horses a little harder, heading toward an old cattle cabin Eli knew, half forgotten. Barely standing, good enough for a short stop, not good enough to be found easy. Eli checked the windows, then the back wall, then finally let himself breathe. Clara sat down slow, then reached into her dress again. This time, she pulled the paper out a little more. Eli stepped closer, but not too close. He read what he could without touching it. Names, dates, rail times, and a mark he didn't like one bit. "Benson. You ever been there?" she asked. "Enough to know trains don't ask questions." Eli said, "No trail, no witnesses." Clara looked up at him. "If we run, they disappear." Eli nodded once. "And if we don't run," he said, "they come after you." Hard. Silence sat between them for a moment. Then Clara said something different. "There's a girl still there?" Eli frowned. "I heard them," she said. "Before he locked me in. They were keeping one behind. Couldn't move her yet. That changed things." Eli looked at the paper again, then at her. "You sure about this?" She didn't hesitate this time. "I'm done being scared." That was all he needed. He grabbed his hat, tightened the strap on his saddlebag, and headed for the door. "Then we're not running, he said. "We're riding straight into it." Before they stepped out, he paused just long enough to glance back at her. "After this," he added, "there's no quiet life waiting on the other side." Clara gave a small, tired smile. "I don't think there ever was." They rode hard through the night, switching horses at a Mexican vaquero's place Eli knew west of the main trail. By the time they reached Benson the following afternoon, both of them were worn thin, but the paper was still dry and still worth killing for. If you're still here, subscribe and ride this one out with me, yes? Grab something warm and tell me where you're listening from tonight. Because what waits in Benson isn't just a train. It's someone who's still alive and someone else who's about to make sure she doesn't stay that way. They reached Benson just before the heat started to drop, when the air still felt heavy but the shadows began to stretch long across the rail yard. Eli slowed the horses before they got too close. No reason to ride straight into a place like that without looking first. From a low ridge, he watched the depot. 2 wagons, 1 rail car already hooked, men moving like they knew exactly what they were doing. Clara followed his gaze. Her breathing changed. "That's them," she said quietly. This wasn't some hidden crime in the dark. This was routine. Clean. Practiced. "Stay behind me when we move," he said. She didn't argue. They circled wide, tying the horses out of sight, then moved in on foot along the backside of the storage sheds. One lookout should have been outside, but he'd wandered off for smoke. The kind of mistake tired men make when they think the job's already done. Eli stopped at the corner, listening. Voices. Cold, rough tone, impatient. The kind of man who liked using his hands too much. Eli glanced at Clara. She already knew. They slipped inside through a half-open door. The smell hit first, dust and old wood, and something else. Fear. In the far corner, behind stacked crates, 3 women sat on the dirt floor with their wrists tied and the outer door barred from the outside. One of them looked up fast, eyes sharp. "Not broken yet." "Lin Yue," Clara whispered. "I heard them say her name." The girl blinked, surprised to hear her name. Eli didn't waste a second. He moved to the crates, working the rope loose with quick, practiced hands. No noise, no wasted motion. Clara knelt beside Lin Yu, speaking low, steady, reassuring, human. Then a boot scraped outside. Eli froze. The door slammed open. Cole stepped in, gun already halfway raised. "Well now," he said, slow and mean. That saves me the trouble. Eli lunged forward and knocked the barrel offline as the shot cracked into the wall. Cole swung hard and younger and faster, but wild. Eli took the hit, stayed on his feet, and drove an elbow into the man's jaw before closing the distance and turning it ugly. No fancy moves, just close fists, hard breathing, and the kind of grit a ranch life leaves in a man. Behind them, Clara pulled Lin Yui up, pushing her toward the back exit. Go, she said. Another shot rang out from outside, more men. Eli saw it coming before he heard the voice. A familiar one. Cold. Controlled. Clara. Everything stopped for half a second. She turned. Sheriff Asa Whitmore stood in the doorway, hat low, gun steady, like he had all the time in the world. Not a father. Not anymore. Just a man protecting what was his. And this time, he wasn't going to let her walk away, because what he said next made it clear he wasn't here to bring her home. He was here to make sure she never spoke again. Ace's gun didn't shake. Not even a little. Claire stood there, breathing hard, but she didn't step back this time. Not like before. You should have stayed quiet, Asa said. His voice wasn't angry. That was the worst part. It was calm. Like, this was just another problem to fix. Clara looked at him. Really looked this time. Not as a daughter, as someone finally seeing the truth. You were supposed to protect people, she said. Eli shifted slightly to the side, putting himself just enough between her and the gun without making it obvious. He had one shot at this. Maybe less. Ace's eyes flicked to him for a second. You don't know what this land takes to keep order, Asa said. Men like you ride through, thinking things are simple. Eli didn't answer right away, because he'd heard that kind of talk before. I know one thing, Eli said finally. You don't get to call it law when you're selling human beings. Sheriff, that was enough. The tension snapped. Asa fired. Eli moved first, fast, but not reckless. Something hot tore across his shoulder, but it wasn't enough to stop him. He drove forward anyway, slammed Asa into the crates, and kept coming until the gun clattered free. Not to win, just to end it. Moments later, the gun was on the ground. Asa was down, alive, breathing. And for the first time, he didn't look like a sheriff, just a man who had run out of places to hide. The U.S. Marshal didn't ride in by accident. Weeks earlier, Clara had slipped a desperate note to the depot clerk in Benson when she first overheard the shipments, begging for federal help if her father ever came for her. The clerk, seeing the frightened women and armed men that afternoon, wired Tucson immediately. By the time the law arrived, everything was laid bare. Lin Yu and the others were safe, not because someone stronger showed up, but because someone chose not to look away. But some things didn't go back. Clara didn't return to that house. She chose a different life, one she built herself. And Eli, he went back to his ranch, but not the same man, because sometimes doing the right thing doesn't make your life easier. It just makes it honest. So let me ask you something. If the truth cost you everything, would you still choose it or stay quiet and call it peace? If this story meant something to you, like and subscribe. Tell me where you're listening from. Now, one last thing. This story is retold from old records with some details adjusted for clarity and meaning. Visuals are created with AI to enhance the experience. If it's not for you, take care and get some rest. If it is, leave a comment. I've got more stories for you. Because out here, the line between right and wrong was never drawn in ink. It was drawn by the people who had the courage to stand on one side of it